the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact. So George is Honorary Director of the European Commission. He has acted until very recently as advisor to the Greek Prime Minister on energy, climate, environment, and circular economy issues. In addition, he is member of the board of the European Public Law Organization and chair of its Climate and Circular Economy Institute. He is also the chair of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe's ESPO Convention. Moreover, he is the chair of the Circular Economy Committee of AmCham Greece and is the president of the Circle the Med Forum. So Director Kremlis got his law degree with distinction from the Law School of Athens. Today, he is going to talk to us about the challenge of circular economy as the new worldwide economic model. Welcome, George.
Well, thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Sarkar. I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to deliver this speech to your students on a very important topic, the international dimension of the circular economy, which currently is the emblematic priority of the European Union, a priority that the European Union is trying to promote worldwide, as circular economy is the new economic model that will enable us to preserve the resources of our planet and to boost the energy transition towards carbon neutrality, a goal that we all share by 2050, as zero emissions is the goal that has been also agreed not only by the European Union, but also by the United States, and has been also acknowledged recently in Sharm el-Sheikh during COP27, the meeting of the parties of UNFCCC on climate change. Now, let me start by some introductory remarks. What is circular economy? To define circular economy, we need to start from the current model, which is still the dominant model, namely the economy which is the linear economy. The linear economy, the still prevailing model, is defined by take, make, and dispose. It uses the resources of the planet by extracting minerals, critical raw materials, and other resources, very often through over-exploitation of those resources, then producing products of a short lifetime, and then disposing these products in landfills, and therefore not exploiting the possibility to recycle them or to recover materials from the products or to use them for energy production. This is the current model of the linear economy that we want to replace with the circular economy. The circular economy is the model which respects and preserves the resources of the planet. If we continue with the model of the linear economy, we will need by 2040 2 planets, and according to scientific estimations, by 2050, 3 planets, something which is, as we all know, impossible. Therefore, it is vital to move from the linear economy to the circular economy. Up to now, the percentage of circular economy worldwide is around 9%, which is not sufficient, as we need to increase this up to the highest possible percentage to make circular economy the dominant economic model, which is the model, once again, preserving the resources of the planet. The word circular economy is the one that has been used after the previous expression, which was resource efficiency. Now we are talking about this holistic model, the one of the circular economy, as the idea is that the resources of the planet should be preserved, should not be overexploited, and we should use new production and consumption patterns with the view to produce products which will have a longer life cycle and which will have a lower environmental, climate, and energy footprint, and which at the end of their life cycle will not become waste, but can be turned into secondary raw materials or secondary products that can enter again the circle of the economy. This is how circular economy is defined. Everything remains within the circle in terms of resources and in terms of byproducts and secondary raw materials or materials that at the end of their life will be introduced again in the economy and will not be lost. Let me start by giving you the priorities of the European Union, which are also very relevant as regards the international dimension of circular economy. The priorities are defined in 3 pillars. The first pillar is green growth. Any new project, any initiative has to be green in the sense that it has to be compliant with the environmental standards, which are either the standards of the United Nations, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or the standards and the legislation of the European Union, or the standards, for example, of the United States, the framework policy as regards the protection of the environment, of climate, the energy, renewables, and the other resources, etc. Therefore, it is very important within this pillar of the green growth to promote only investments which are green and which can therefore benefit from green financing. This is extremely important, as only green investments, according to the so-called taxonomy standards. This is the regulation of the European Union, which establishes international standards for green projects and green investments, and which is also followed by international financial institutions, for example, the European Investment Bank, which is also a worldwide bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the World Bank, and other financial institutions following currently taxonomy criteria to finance only green projects and green investments which are eligible for green financing. And therefore, a conditionality has been established here with the view to promoting this type of green investments within the green growth that will also create green jobs, which are extremely important, that will promote eco-innovation, and of course will boost the energy transition towards climate neutrality. The second pillar is the so-called blue economy. Blue economy is extremely important. It refers to the resources of the oceans and of the seas, the marine environment, all types of resources from aquaculture to fisheries to investments as regards hydrocarbons, exploration and exploitation of hydrocarbons, ports, undersea cables and pipelines, and more generally, any type of investment in the marine environment, which needs to be in line also with the standards of green growth, and therefore we can use the terms blue economy following the standards of green growth, as the blue economy generates also jobs, blue jobs, which are green jobs, and boosts new activities and eco-innovation. The third pillar, which has been developed recently more because of the COVID pandemics, is the so-called digital economy. Digital economy is extremely important because it complements both green growth and blue economy through IT applications and through artificial intelligence, which is also extremely important. And in that sense, the three pillars, green growth, blue economy, and digital economy, are complementary to each other and develop bridges and synergies amongst them. And on the top of them, the overarching priority is circular economy, some kind of umbrella covering the three pillars, which need to become circular on their own. So we can talk about circular green growth, circular blue economy, and circular digital economy. And of course, there is interaction amongst the pillars as they support each other in their operation and in the way they build and they create synergies. Now, the important thing is that circular economy applies not only vertically, but horizontally, because circular economy as the new economic model needs to be mainstreamed in all the levels of governance and in all the policies as applied in our countries. From the level of the central government, the federal one, if we refer to the member to the United States, to the level of the states, and then to the level of the municipalities, and possibly to the lower level. This is the so-called vertical application of circular economy. And of course, we have the horizontal mainstreaming of circular economy in all the other policy areas, with the view to turning them into circular policies. Take the example of circular agriculture, circular transport, circular tourism, circular energy, circular fisheries, and so on. It is very important, these elements of circularity, to be introduced into all the other policies. And of course, circularity applies at the level of the business sector through what one call circular entrepreneurship, which is how circularity applies in the business sector, in the companies, through environmental and social governance. These are the ESGs, which are extremely important for the companies to be acknowledged as green companies, as circular companies. And I used to add in this term ESG, which is the successor of CSR, corporate social responsibility, that we had in the past. ESG is more developed, more holistic. I add the letter C to make it circular environmental and social governance, which provides a more holistic approach to the ESG dimension, which is extremely important for the companies. Now, going back to the vertical application of circular economy, it is extremely important to have circular economy plans at the highest level, going down to the lowest level, starting, for example, with a federal, in the case of the United States, or a national, in the case of other countries, circular economy plan, which is the one foreseeing all the strategic axes for circularity to apply across all the sectors of the economy, both vertically and horizontally. And then going down to the lower levels, it is important to have circular economy plans at the level of the states, in the case of the United States, then at the level of the municipalities, at the level of the towns, the cities. And in that respect, the idea, instead of using the word smart city that we have been using, it is preferable to use the term circular city, which is more holistic compared, and more, I would say, reflecting the circular economy priorities compared to the smart city concept, which has started as a concept for a city to be energy efficient through, for example, LED lighting, through electric cars, through energy efficiency, through other applications too, and methodology to reduce its environmental, climate, and energy footprint, and of course, through the management of its waste, as waste under circular economy is a resource and not something that we all are trying to get rid of. You remember the expression, not in my backyard? It was referring to waste. Nobody wanted to have waste management installations in their neighborhood or in their city. Now, with the new circular economy model, waste is not anymore something that we want to get rid of. Waste is a resource, and it is extremely important to manage waste in the way that at the end of their life, they don't become something which we dispose, as in the linear economy, but something that we can reuse for other purposes, or that we can use for the production of energy in a waste to energy process. So waste management is extremely important. And in that respect, I would like also to refer to liquid waste, to wastewater. Wastewater is extremely important. As you know, treated wastewater is not reused. It goes to the seas or to the rivers. According to the circular economy standards, treated wastewater, wastewater that has been made subject to secondary or tertiary treatment, can be reused for irrigation purposes. In other words, it can be brought back to land to be used for irrigation or for industrial applications for cooling or for other purposes. For example, you could establish a secondary network to wash boats or other ships at the marinas, instead of wasting drinking water, which is currently used for industrial purposes, while treated wastewater could be used in a period of water scarcity, as currently we all face the climate crisis. And the climate crisis is unfortunately becoming more severe. We are all experiencing the extreme weather phenomena in all parts of our planet, not only because of the increase of the temperature, but also because of other, let's say, extreme weather phenomena, typhoons, floods because of very strong rainfall, fires in the summer because of the extreme heat. And we have all been suffering from the intensity of the climate change. We are not talking anymore about climate change. We are talking about climate crisis. The goal of the international community is to avoid that the temperature increases more than 2 Celsius degrees. This is the objective of the Paris Agreement. And of course, the European Union and the United States have agreed that ideally the temperature should not increase more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is also a target that was acknowledged in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and of course in COP26 in Glasgow in the United Kingdom the year before. And we also expect next year in COP28 in Dubai to have the same commitment. Of course, this commitment is extremely important and has to be undertaken by all the countries of the globe, as this is a collective effort. As I often say, the environment has no borders. We are all citizens of the same planet, where the climate change affects us all. And of course, the more affected are the citizens of the coastal areas and of the islands. There are islands in the Pacific and in the Indian Ocean, which, because of the rise of the sea level, are threatened in a way that their islands, their lands, their lives might be substantially affected, and they might have to move to other parts of the globe to continue their lives. Therefore, the climate crisis, which is also boosted because of the energy crisis, as the crises are interconnected. We don't have only the climate crisis, we have the energy crisis, we have the post-COVID crisis, which has had important economic impacts. We also had the crisis of the food chain, which has started and which unfortunately has not become as important as the other crisis, namely the climate crisis, which is a crisis that will persist, and the energy crisis. And of course, the war in Ukraine is also affecting more our planet, as because of the explosions, the weapons, the pollution that is generated because of the war, the environment, not only of Ukraine, but of the broader region is affected. The impacts of the war are extremely important, and we need also to be aware of the risk which at a certain moment has occurred of having nuclear power plants, as Ukraine has a lot of nuclear power plants. And we all remember the Chernobyl nuclear accident, which was one of the most important nuclear accidents that has affected not only Ukraine, but all the European continent. There were threats to nuclear power plants that have been avoided at the last moment, and which could have had very, very serious impacts if they were to happen. Thanks God, these nuclear threats are not anymore very likely to happen, but the pollution, not only the air pollution, the water pollution, the soil pollution, because of the war, is extremely important, and it has affected all the European continent, and it affects also the climate of the planet, as our climate has no borders, and what happens in one part of the globe can affect other parts of the globe. For example, the fires, the very important fires that you had in the United States or in Australia or in other parts of the globe, have affected and have had the strong impacts on the climate worldwide, which are to be avoided. Now, what is the importance of circular economy? The importance of circular economy is that it can boost the energy transition, which is how we can move from the traditional energy resources that we are currently using, namely hydrocarbons, to renewable energy sources. Green energy sources, namely solar energy, hydropower, wind energy, energy from biomass, tide and waves energy, and of course hydrogen, which is the fuel of the future, until, of course, fusion, which will be the fuel of the long-term future, becomes available. But meanwhile, the goal, and this is, let's say, the main objective of the Green Deal of the European Union and of the equivalent program in the United States, is to boost renewables versus hydrocarbons, and of course to promote the use of hydrogen, namely green hydrogen, which is the hydrogen produced through an electrolysis process, which of course needs water. And where water is not available, we have desalination processes which are available and which can use renewable energy sources to be acknowledged as green investments. So desalination can provide us with the water which is needed together with renewable energy sources to produce hydrogen, which is extremely important. And of course, ammonia is extremely important as it can become a fuel for the shipping industry. As you know, the shipping industry has a heavy environmental, climate, and energy footprint, not as heavy as road transport, but still a heavy footprint. And the emissions trading system of the European Union, which is a system regulating the flights and the emissions from the aircrafts, is now planned to be extended to the shipping sector to regulate the emissions from the shipping sector. But what is important is to use alternative fuels, which can be fuels from biomass and other resources, namely green fuels, which have a lower climate and environmental footprint compared to the hydrocarbons and the fuels we are currently using. And of course, electromobility is extremely important. In Greece, we have an ambitious program of electromobility with incentives for those who buy electric cars, with electric chargers plans to be developed in the cities for the citizens to have access to electric chargers, which is a key element to develop electromobility. And of course, systems to promote hybrid cars and new generation cars versus the older generation cars, which have, as we all know, a high environmental, climate, and energy footprint. Now, circular economy is also extremely important, as I have mentioned before, when it applies to the specific sectors that have to become green, to become circular. Let's take the sector of agriculture. As we all know, agriculture uses fertilizers and pesticides. And both fertilizers and pesticides, if they are not reasonably used, can lead to pollution, can lead to nitrates, can pollute the aquifer, the underground waters, the sea and the rivers with eutrophication phenomena. Therefore, through circular economy, we can develop biofertilizers and biopesticides, which are new, let's say, generation pesticides and fertilizers with a lower or practically neutral environmental, climate, and energy footprint. And of course, agriculture produces also a lot of waste, agricultural waste. The agricultural waste provide a very useful biomass that can be used to produce both fertilizers, but which can also be used for byproducts. For example, products that can be used in cosmetics from the oil industry, for example, or can produce resources which can lead to energy. For example, it can produce biofuels or biomass that can be used to produce energy. Therefore, in the sector of agriculture, all these new processes can be introduced to make agriculture circular. Take the sector of tourism. Tourism has a high environmental and climate footprint. If you take the all-inclusive hotels, in an all-inclusive hotel, every tourist produces daily almost 2 kilos of waste. This waste can be managed in a circular economy manner. For example, when it comes to food waste, from food waste of the hotels or of the restaurants, you can produce feed, that's to say food for animal. You can produce biofuels. You can produce very good quality compost. And of course, you can use them to produce energy. So there are many applications from food waste. And of course, one of the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals is to halve the food waste production by 2030, which means that expired food in the supermarkets, together with food waste from restaurants, from hotels, etc., can be used as a resource. And we have referred to many applications. I mean, expired food from the supermarket can also be used for social purposes, as expired food can still be of good quality for a few days, although the consumers do not buy it at the supermarket when it expires, but still it could be used for social purposes, but also produce feed, as I have mentioned before, biofuels, good quality compost, or energy. So if you take all these sectors of the economy, when they become circular, and when the circularity criteria are introduced to them, automatically they use less resources, they produce less waste. What they produce is reintroduced in the circle of the economy, and at the end of the day, they have a lower environmental, climate, and energy footprint. And of course, as I have mentioned at the beginning, this is extremely important for the environmental and social governance, as companies from now on, if they wanted to have access to green financing, they need to show that they comply with the environmental and social governance criteria, which means that they need a strategy within the company, which is a strategy for the company to reduce, once again, its environmental, climate, and energy footprint. For example, by managing better its waste, by recovering resources from their waste. And in that respect, industrial symbiosis is an extremely important concept. What is industrial symbiosis? The waste a private company is produced can be used by another company as a resource or a raw material that can be used in their production process. Take, for example, waste oils or batteries. at the end of their lives, for their producers, they are a waste. But in the context of the industrial symbiosis, another company can recover them and use them as secondary raw materials or as resources to produce other products in their process. And in that respect, I wanted to refer to the critical raw materials. As you know, in this period of energy transition, where eco-innovation is becoming extremely important to boost renewable energy sources, the use of hydrogen, other applications. What is extremely important is to boost the eco-innovation through these new technologies which are green and which will be eligible for green financing. And I'm coming back to the taxonomy regulation, which refers to circular economy as a concept which needs to be present in the company which is seeking financing for their product, for their production process. And of course, the so-called do no significant harm principle. For a project to be eligible for financing, not only the investment needs to be green and needs to be assessed with the view to minimize its impacts, also in terms of climate proofing, but it also has to avoid significant harm. The do no significant harm test is an important test that all financial institutions will be applying when financing either in the form of a grant or in the form of a loan will be considered either by a public entity or by a private company. Therefore, all these considerations are extremely important to boost a circular economy, both in this vertical and in this horizontal concept that I have presented. And of course, what is extremely important for the blue economy and the circular economy within the blue economy is to have the so-called maritime spatial plans. For any activity to be developed in the marine environment, not only this activity needs to be assessed both strategically and also in terms of its environmental impacts, but it also needs to be foreseen in a maritime spatial plan, which has to undergo a strategic environmental assessment with public participation, as the public is extremely important in the circular economy. And here we are talking also about the so-called social circular economy. Circular economy is not only a top-down process, it is also a bottom-up process. Every citizen needs to be involved in this process. And in that respect, we're not talking only about circular states, circular towns, but we need to talk also about circular entrepreneurship and circular households and circular citizens. The citizens of the future need to be circular. They need to be aware in terms of what they need to do to avoid and to reduce their environmental, social, their environmental, climate and energy footprint, and also how they can contribute through social entrepreneurship, as social entrepreneurship, micro enterprises, and the social dimension of circular economy is extremely important to boost the economic dimension of circular economy. And in that respect, circular economy becomes also a new ideology. It's not only the new economic model which will save our planet and preserve its resources, but it becomes a new culture, a new ideology that the European Union is trying to promote worldwide. And it is fortunate that in the conclusions of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, there were strong references to the circular economy as the model which needs to apply in the future from now on, which will be supported. And in that respect, I would like to inform you that the European Union and its 27 member states are promoting circular economy both in the neighborhood policy of the European Union, but also worldwide, as we are developing a circular economy diplomacy. This is again a new concept next to the climate diplomacy that the United States are also very strongly developing with John Kerry, who is the special envoy for climate change, together with the European Union. Energy diplomacy, climate diplomacy, and circular economy diplomacy are extremely important diplomacies that we need to promote worldwide throughout the globe and have them shared through capacity building, institutional building, but also through financing. And it is a good thing that in COP27, the Loss and Damage Fund has been established, has been not formally established, but has been conceived as an idea, which will be formally established in the next COP in Dubai, with financing from those countries that can support developing countries which are affected because of the climate change and which need to survive, to have climate adaptation and mitigation plans, and of course, which need to introduce circular economy patterns. Now, with this, let's say, remarks, I'm at your disposal for